Star Wars has really gone downhill of late. Admittedly, George Lucas created one of the best universes in cinematic history, and he kind of shat on that himself really when you think about it in terms of going back to the prequels, but the more modern Star Wars titles have really gone right down the pattern, so there's a lot of work here to bring the Star Wars universe back to where it used to be when I was a child, that's for sure. And the games, again, they're better than the films. Visually, they are absolutely impeccable, delivering the film-like qualities, but they're quite shallow games overall, and they're far from the older titles that we used to enjoy, such as Jedi Outcast, and even Super Star Wars on the SNES, which were great titles. But here, after multiple attempts of trying to release a single-player game, Respawn have come out and done the job. With Stig Asmussen at the helm, what do we have here? Well, we have a single player title that really wears its heart on its sleeve. All the rumours, all the rumblings about it being a Dark Souls type game are true. It really is a Dark Souls Sekiro style game. It really has all those areas down the pat. You have a huge area to explore, you have multiple paths through those areas, you can open up shortcuts, you have your own version of bonfires, which is meditation, and then you upskill and improve your abilities throughout the title. It's very unforgiving, creatures come out of nowhere and attack you, you have to use defense, parry, move and attack. And there's lots of puzzle elements in there as well to try and get through certain areas and work out this crisscross maze and shortcuts and other secret areas in the title. It has some decent humour, some great banter going on in the backgrounds, so all those areas are very good. And visually, using Unreal Engine 4, it is very impressive indeed. Now, I will be covering the title in much more depth when I hit the base versions, but here I wanted to get a quick video out to give you a discussion about the title overall and just how it runs on the premium consoles. You can check out more when I covered the Xbox One. Well, they said it was the Xbox One X version at the E3, but as we can see now, looking at the full analysis, that clearly wasn't, or something's gone drastically wrong. Yes, the version that they showed at E3 and released the footage of was running very close to 60 FPS. It certainly had dips and stutters, but it held 60 FPS quite a lot in the gameplay. It was certainly sub HD, or sub 4K, sorry. But the game here on the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro doesn't hold 60 FPS, but I'll get to performance in a moment. In terms of graphics and visuals, there's two modes, which is very good. Again, like Sekiro, you can go for a graphics mode or a performance mode. Essentially, you've got standard mode and then you've got performance mode. The standard mode, the quality mode on the Xbox One X, that pushes out a resolution of 2560 by 1440 natively, and then on top is that temporal reconstruction of Unreal Engine 4, just improving that image quality and giving a slightly softer edge, smoothing out the images, a little bit of trails every now and then, but it does help the image quality. Along with the Star Wars universe, it's very strong artistic style, neon colours, great material and lighting work in the title overall, which does help the image quality. All those elements add up to a very attractive looking title that really does a good job of looking sharp even at 1080p. So the Xbox One X 1440 with that TAA does look very good, and ultimately it does look very similar to a DICE Star Wars title, but a lot of that comes down to the fact that I'm pretty sure they'll be reusing assets here from the photogrammetry that they used, and the Star Wars universe lends itself very well to that kind of bright colours and strong lighting throughout. So the PS4 Pro, that comes in a little lower. In fact, it's 30% down on what we saw on the Xbox One X. So that comes in at an odd 2240 by 1260, running in the same 30 FPS and quality mode. Now, performance-wise, that mode is actually very good. There is a few stutters and judders every now and then from streaming into assets and loading to new areas, and certainly some of the cutscenes can judder occasionally as well, but overall it's a pretty solid 30 FPS. There's no frame pacing issue, so it's not gone all out to emulate Dark Souls and Sekiro quite at that level. That's always a nice little bonus, thank you very much. And at 30 FPS, it holds that 33 millisecond frame time very well indeed, and it feels smooth and consistent, and some of that comes down to the per object motion blur, and actually the menu screen, you can turn that off, the film grain, the chromatic aberration, and even flick it into that performance mode, which is where things even up a little bit.
What now? What now? Train stop? Train stopped? This can't be good.
Both of them target 1080p at this point, no matter what you're doing with your overriding operating system output, and you can see the reduction in the image quality far more on the Xbox One X, obviously because it's a much higher resolution overall. But there is a difference between the two consoles, and that is the fact that the Xbox One X does actually run better effects. The shadow quality, the shadow maps are of high resolution, the screen space reflections are of a high resolution, and some other touches in the game like the specular and maybe even the AA look slightly better on the Xbox One X. So it's not just the resolution that's a difference. So when you reduce the resolution, there is still those extra elements on the Xbox One X, and that maybe explains why the fact that when you do that and you jump to the performance mode, neither of them are great, by the way, probably better than what you would get from Dark Souls or Sekiro on the same console as mine, but it targets 60 FPS, so it does unlock the frame rate. There's no tearing, the VSync is fully engaged on both modes, but it does perform not perfect at all. It hovers around the 40s, mid 40s, 50s. Some of the cutscenes can push up to 60 FPS, but once you get into those larger areas and large maps where you've got lots of long distance views, then it really is hovering around those 35s, 40s, and there are points when it can drop right back down to 30 FPS and consistent 33 milliseconds, and that can obviously feel quite bad. Now, if you are used to playing Sekiro, Dark Souls 3 with this unlocked frame rate mode on a console, then really this is better than that overall. It's a bit jittery. Make sure you download the patches. This is the disc version here. We'll have an updated patch version to see if that improves, and there's maybe options there where they're going to improve it even more, but at the moment the PS4 Pro is slightly better on average than the Xbox One X, which you can see my as close as I can like for like test, but it really, there isn't a lot in it. I wouldn't get carried away and think that the PS4 Pro is a 60 FPS game and the Xbox One X is a 31, but it's slightly more consistent and it judders slightly less. Both consoles can have peaks and judders into 80, 90 milliseconds at times when it's loading in certain sections when you're streaming in assets, and the game kind of funnels you through these tight areas a lot to try and hide the fact that it is doing a hell of a lot of streaming throughout the title. Overall, it's a very solid, really well presented title with a very grand and dramatic, bombastic entrance that really wears its Uncharted heart right on its sleeve, and it takes me right back to Star Wars 1313, which never really came in the end. It all got shown and then died off at the start of the generation or even before the generation. This really is that title. After all, we've got it. Respawn have delivered. It's a solid, well-presented and impeccable looking single-player story, and for EA to deliver this at this point, Respawn really have been their diamond in the rough, so to speak, in terms of EA's crown, and they've pulled them back from the brink, in my opinion. A little bit cheeky that this title didn't get a demo, or at least a 10-hour or 4-hour, whatever limited demo it should have got on the EA Access Pass, but I can understand it because I think it's going to sell by the bucket load this Christmas, and I think it's one of those titles that if you have been holding out waiting for a more consistent and coherent single player story within the Star Wars universe that takes off into certain areas after Order 66 has been passed and it's obviously many years on, it does have legs to take the series, the saga and the universe to somewhere else. Still not quite sold on the main Jedi character at this point, but I do think that he does a good job in the role that he has, and hopefully he'll build and adapt throughout the game, and the story is pushed forward and the characters are developed in these absolutely sumptuous real-time cinematics, which again have that DICE Frostbite look to them in terms of artistic design and character models, but they are better animated, artistically better designed, and lighting and overall image quality is much better than previous DICE titles in that area. But again, you can run them at 60 FPS on consoles, but it's not a locked 60 FPS as I've already shown. Again, PC will be the way to go if you want a rock solid 60 FPS, but who knows what kind of machine you'll need to do that. I'm really not expecting it to be a low level machine based on what we're seeing here on the Pro and the Xbox One X at 1080p, and it does look like it's a pretty demanding game overall, but Unreal Engine 4 is. It must almost be noted as well that I did have a few Q&A issues throughout the title so far. There's points where creatures just disappeared through the floor. I got stuck myself and I couldn't move the character anymore. I had to go to the menu screen, quit, back to the title. And then there's a few typical IO bugs, glitches that happen in the game. Some of them, like I say, game breaking. Not being able to move is game breaking. You have to reset the game. So download the patches, get the latest versions, because there's certainly more to come, I'm sure. This has been pushed out to make sure it hits that Christmas sales and it doesn't wait around and miss the money that's going to come in for a Jedi Star Wars title at this time of year. As it stands, it's a great title and I really am enjoying my time so far in the few hours that I've been diving into it on these two consoles. Please check back more to the base consoles tomorrow and a much deeper dive into the game overall and those patch versions to see if improvements on performance can actually creep its way back up to a locked 60 FPS. Anyway, I'm out. I'll catch you on the next one.
No! I recognize that stance. Perhaps you had some training after all. Who is your master, Padawan? Someone I killed, perhaps? What Jedi gave their life so that you might live? Your demise draws nearer.